Hey guys, thanks for joining us for The Pursuit. I'm here with Pastor Nate, and actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an option. We are going to be able to film The Pursuit wherever you would like. You choose, and we're going to film it on site wherever you want to be.
I really liked the beach.
You liked the beach?
Yeah, that you were at, so.
We'll be at the beach.
Nice.
There we go. It's good to
Very
be
good.
back. Well, yeah. So to open up, we always have an icebreaker. This past week, we were able to have our kids in for a family worship service with us, so we enjoyed that. Pastor Kivett kind of spoke to the kids and had some stuff in there specifically for them as we talk about the parent and child, relationship and the roles there and stuff. And so we kind of had an icebreaker that went along with this.
Yep.
So
we were thinking of an icebreaker, and I was like, well, it'd be good to share a story about either your kids, because that's what came to my mind, of a time when you either caught them in an act of disobedience, so a time that they didn't obey their parents, or a time that you did not obey your parents as you were supposed to. And so take a moment, share that with your group. But are we sharing these?
yeah, let's go. Yeah, you go first.
Okay, so several years ago, Emma, because I was a perfect child, I obeyed my parents perfectly.
You have no examples.
Right. So I have to look to my own kids. Anyways, there was a time Emma, I don't know, she was maybe three or 4 years old, but she knew it was wrong to lie. And so something had happened, and I thought out of the corner of my eye that she had hit her brother, because he starts crying, and I wasn't really sure, but I asked her, I said, Emma, did you just hit your brother? And she thinks for a moment. She knows she's not supposed to lie. She says, did you see me or did you not? So I was like, that doesn't matter if I saw you. You better not lie in this moment. So I guess I really didn't catch her in that one, but yeah, so that was a good time. And then another time where she, again, she's 3, Nehemiah's like 1, and there's an E scratched in the paint of a chair that we had painted and an A. And we asked, Emma, did you scratch the letters in the chair? And she thinks for a moment. She starts crying and getting silent and just crying. Emma, did you do it? I mean, obviously Nehemiah doesn't know his letters yet.
Yeah.
This is too perfect of a letter, and for it to be accident. And she gets all frustrated, and finally can we just stop talking about this? She just did not want to. So I guess in those moments she obeyed, right?
She did not lie, technically, right? Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Yeah, with
about
our
you?
kids, kind of similar there. Like, we have got monitors in their room when they were younger where we could watch them, because it was like, we didn't want them getting out of their bed. We wanted to be able to check on them without waking them up, obviously. And so we'd have monitors in there and stuff, and so there were times where they would get up out of their bed, and we would go in and get on to them, and they're like, how did you know? And we're like, cause we can watch. Now, I will say this. Pastor Kivett gave away some secrets of parents Sunday morning before, and I will tell you this. I have used that to my advantage with having those cameras, maybe when we were not watching on the cameras, to let the kids know. Now, listen, Mommy and Daddy can see you, even when you don't think we can.
Trying to get the answer.
Yeah. And so then it's like, can you really see me? Like, yeah. So I've used that too. That's another secret that parents use. Sorry to blow your cover there, parents. But yeah, go ahead and talk about this with your group right now.
So I hope you enjoyed those stories and had a little fun with that icebreaker. But Pastor Kivett, as he was preaching, he gave a list of questions, and for the students that the kids that they had were able to fill out. But then he also put these up on the slides for us adults to be able to answer for ourselves. We didn't get the cheat sheets.
No.
But one of the questions he had was, who is my authority, and am I submitting to my authority? And I think that's important. And I was very thankful for Pastor Kivett, and I was happy that he included the kids on these questions. And a passage like this, where it's talking about children, obeying your parents and the Lord, for this is right, being able to sit there and apply, and even kind of going back to the week before, really it's the next section in this passage, but to servants and their masters and stuff like that. But really hitting it home, who is my authority, and and then us having to ask ourselves, am I submitting to my authority? I was thankful for that insight and just kind of that application, but then made me have to sit there and think, wait a second, you're my authority. Am I submitting to you?
Yeah. No, and I mean, like you said, we all have authority in our lives. And again, as adults, it's a little different. So he talked a little bit in there about, the children's role is to obey their parents. How do we obey? In the Lord. We obey our parents in the Lord because this is what's right. But then it even goes on and he talked about the differentiation there between obeying parents and honoring parents, and how there's that you're obeying them, and then there's a step where after you're obeying them, you're also honoring them by lifting them up, is what he talked about, and how we honor them and lift them up in a way of showing that they're important to us, they're valuable to us. We seek out their wisdom even though we don't have to, maybe, but like as we get older, we're going back to them and kind of seeking that out.
Yeah, and how he even said it's not just when you're out of the house, this honoring your parents. Are you lifting them up? Do you talk about them in an honorable way, or is it just, oh, my parents are awful, or my parents, and we joke and we have those funny stories, but do you lift them up? Do you cherish them? Do you, I just loved the word lift them up.
Oh, yeah. So who's my authority, and am I submitting to them? Because as we talked about, we all have authority over us, and especially right now in a political world where it's very separated and diverse, and a lot of feelings and emotions around this. Do we see the authority as placed there by God on purpose, even though the authority over us may not believe like we do, vote like we do, whatever it may be? Even though it's different, can we submit to the authority that God's ultimately placed over us? Again, kind of touching on what Pastor Kivett talked about last week. But take a second and talk about this among your group. Who's my authority? And then am I submitting to that authority? All right, well then, after talking about the kids' role and what that looked like with obeying and honoring the parents, Pastor Kivett moved on to the parents' role. And as we talked about, the parents' job is to love, lead, and teach. And so as a parent, you're not supposed to provoke your children, you're not supposed to make them angry, you're not supposed to have these lofty expectations on them that they cannot hold up and that become burdensome to them, and kind of these unrealistic expectations, or living through your child, a childhood you didn't have maybe. And so as we do that, we're leading and we're parenting, again, almost like what Pastor Kivett talked about last week. It's not a burdensome leading and just authority only. He talked about that good balance of having authority, but also having that love that goes along with it.
Yeah, and one of the things I really liked, and even kind of going back to the last question, I didn't want to jump ahead, but just this idea of when we look at that authority and we submit to that authority, this phrase, in the Lord, obeying our parents or obeying the authority as unto the Lord. And do we do it with God in mind? Because I think there's a time where, again, and I like how Pastor Kivett addressed to the believer. He's very specifically said speaking to the Christian. That's the only way that we can do this unto the Lord. But honestly, if I am only obeying because it makes my life easier, or I get a reward from it, or it's not unto the Lord, then really there is a selfishness in it, or there's it's for my own gain, for my own glory. Yeah. So sometimes you obey so that you are raised up in your pedestal, but everything, and really, I mean, do we call that a sin when we're doing it in our own might and in our own power and for our own selves? Are we exalting ourselves? But everything that we do, and specifically as we're talking in this passage, obeying, do we do it in the Lord? Do we do it because we love Him, to bring Him glory, to bring Him honor? And He finds pleasure in that. And so I don't always think of that. And it's a reminder for me, like when I don't obey my authority, or I don't even when I don't do it, then it's not just that person that I'm wronging, but it's I'm missing what God desires from me to do. And I know that's just one kind of part of this next section, but then also that, am I loving? Am I leading? Am I teaching well? And I think the answer to that is I'm not, if I'm not asking myself those questions constantly. I got to constantly remind myself, am I doing this well? Am I doing it? How am I loving? How am I leading? How am I teaching? Because if I'm not doing those, or if I'm not asking myself that from time to time, then I'm probably not doing it. I'm not teaching. I'm either being passive, and that's not what God's called us to do in raising our children.
Well, and it's interesting too, like we talked about, we all have authority over us. We all have people who we have to submit to and obey, but we also all have some sort of authority over other people. We have some kind of authority over someone, whether it's a friendship, or that it may not be I'm your employee, but I'm holding some kind of authority in a relationship. Even
as a believer, we have the authority to one another to keep you accountable, to sharpen one another, to rebuke, to call sin out, and those types of things.
So even in that, like the question we have right now is kind of, how am I doing in authority? And am I loving, leading, and teaching well? And what tends to happen with parents, but also with people in other kinds of relationships, again, when we talk about authority, is we can kind of go on either end of the spectrum where we lean too heavily into the rules and the rigidity that they offer and focus solely on that and kind of neglect the love. But then also sometimes we can go way over here on, we just want to be buddies and we just want to be loving you, and then we have no rules. And what happens is it kind of, what we see is, especially with kids from either one of those, it kind of makes them jump to the other side almost, like we can see them going polar opposites many times. But what we talk about here is loving and teaching and leading well, combining that authority and those rules that have a place, but also with the love and grace and mercy that have a place in there too, and how those merge, and how Christ has modeled that for us, and how God has modeled that as a loving Father.
That's good.
So take some time right now, talk about this. How am I doing in authority, and am I loving, leading, and teaching well? All right, at the end of Pastor Kivett's sermon, he kind of gave us one last question, and we're going to kind of end this as our challenge to everybody. We want you to kind of assess yourself in asking a question of, on a scale of 1 to 10, how am I doing in my part of the family? Now, everybody may be at a different place, or your family may look a little different, whatever that may be, but as we talked about, whether it's obeying your parents, honoring your parents, or even kind of how you love, lead, and teach as a parent or someone in authority, kind of how would you rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10? Can you be authentic and kind of talk about some of the struggles with that, maybe some areas you need to work on, or if you're sitting down as a family and able to talk about this as parents and kids, how can you give some feedback to each other even?
Yeah, I know my kids and my wife and I, we talked about this right after the message on Sunday, and just how my kids were asking, and of course none of us gave each other 10s because and Pastor Kivett said, if you were a 10, then come talk to me, because I need some advice from you. But yeah, I think if you could definitely do this internally, but then take it to the next step, and not just internally evaluate yourself, but be transparent. Ask your small group, ask your spouse, ask your kids where they would put you on the scale, but then speak it out loud. That's how we're going to grow as a church, is by being transparent, by being vulnerable. It's hard.
Oh yeah.
It's hard because we all like other people to think we're perfect, even if we know we aren't. Yeah. But take time to evaluate yourself, but then share with others around you where you would place yourself in the scale, and depending on the setting you're in, maybe ask where would others put you in those different areas.
Well, guys, thanks for joining us this week for The Pursuit. If you missed past sermon videos and want to go back and watch those, you can find those on our channel.
Yeah, you can go back and watch the Pursuit videos. You can help us out and help yourselves out by subscribing to this channel. And then we also just want to say thank you all for tuning in. We hope that this has been beneficial to you and edifying, and we'll see you guys later.